Imagine being 12 years old and already standing beside one of the world's most feared dictators, not as a guest, not by accident, but as a statement, a deliberate, calculated statement to the entire world. Most kids her age are worrying about homework. This girl might one day have her finger near a nuclear button. Her name is Kim Joo-a, and the world is only just beginning to pay attention to her. For most of her life, she simply didn't exist, at least not publicly. North Korea gave the world nothing. No name, no photos, no confirmation she was even real. The first credible hint of her existence came from the most unlikely source imaginable, former NBA star Dennis Rodman. In 2013, Rodman returned from one of his bizarre but well-documented visits to Pyongyang, where he'd built a genuinely strange friendship with Kim Jong-un. In an interview with The Guardian, he casually mentioned that the dictator had a baby daughter and that he'd actually held her in his arms. He even shared a name, Kim Joo. For years, that was essentially all the world had to go on. Then in 2017, South Korea's National Intelligence Service, the NIS, released a report painting a slightly clearer picture. According to their findings, Kim Jong-un and his wife Ri Sol-ju have 3 children, a son reportedly born around 2010, a daughter born in 2013, and a third child born in 2017 whose gender has never been confirmed. The alleged son has never once appeared in public, which has led some analysts to speculate about possible health issues, while others, including North Korea expert Jae-woo Park, question whether that son exists at all. Both Rodman and a separate source, someone who visited Pyongyang at Kim's personal invitation, apparently mentioned the daughter but never brought up an older son. What we do know is that Kim Joo-a has grown up almost entirely hidden from the outside world. She's believed to be homeschooled in Pyongyang, inside the heavily secured family compound known as the Ryong Residence, or Residence Number 55. Unlike her father and his sister Kim Yo-jung, who both spent years studying in Switzerland, Joo-a has not been sent abroad. Analysts believe this is a deliberate choice. When it became publicly known that Kim Jong-un had lived in Switzerland, it complicated the regime's propaganda. They weren't about to let that happen again. Beyond Pyongyang, the family retreats to several luxury estates scattered across the country. One of the largest sits along North Korea's east coast in Wonsan, a sprawling compound with private beaches, guest houses, luxury yachts, its own railway station, and what appears to be a horse riding track. According to NIS reports, Joo-a loves horseback riding. That detail matters more than it might seem because in North Korean mythology, white horses are deeply tied to the Kim dynasty's identity and power. Everything changed in November 2022. North Korea conducted a test launch of the Hwasong-17, one of the largest intercontinental ballistic missiles ever built, with a range capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. State media documented the event with their usual theatrical precision, but international press wasn't fixating on the missile. They were fixating on the little girl standing beside Kim Jong-un. It was Kim Ju-ae's first ever public appearance. Father and daughter, dressed casually, almost like they were on a weekend outing, except they were standing in front of a weapon capable of mass destruction. The image went around the world instantly, and that was just the beginning. A few months later, in February 2023, state media released photos from a lavish banquet marking the 75th anniversary of the Korean People's Army. In one striking image, Ju-ae is seated directly between her parents, right in front of North Korea's highest-ranking military generals. In a country where Kim Jong-un is treated with almost religious reverence, the framing was jarring. His daughter wasn't in the background. She was front and center. The following night brought an enormous military parade through Pyongyang. Thousands of soldiers, tanks, jets, and missiles rolled past the crowds, and there was Ju-ae, closer to her father than anyone else, cheek to cheek, whispering to him. As North Korean expert Jae-woo Park noted, no one else gets that kind of physical closeness with Kim Jong-un, not his generals, not his aides. The intimacy itself was a signal. Later in 2023, a photo of Ju-ae and her father watching the launch of North Korea's first spy satellite went viral for a very specific reason. For the first time in documented history, Kim Jong-un was positioned behind his daughter in an official portrait. The New York Times described it as the first time ever that the supreme leader had been relegated to a secondary role in official state imagery. She was wearing a black leather outfit typically associated with the North Korean Air Force, clothing reserved for senior officials outside military circles. A media outlet called Nikkei Asia analyzed over 14,000 hours of North Korean state television from 2022 through late 2025. Their findings were striking. The number of days Ju-ae appeared on screen began rising sharply in 2024 and is now approaching the frequency of her father's own appearances. More than half of those appearances have been at military events, but increasingly she's also being seen at diplomatic meetings, and in 2025 she traveled abroad with her father, accompanying him to Beijing, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Her clothing has also evolved, growing noticeably more formal and representative with each passing year. State media have begun referring to her using titles that carry enormous symbolic weight in North Korean political culture: the respected daughter, general, and morning star. These are not casual labels. In a country where every word in official media is deliberate and loaded with meaning, titles like these are a declaration. So, is Kim Jong-un actually preparing his daughter to rule? To answer that, it helps to understand how North Korea's last transfer of power worked. Kim Jong-il ruled for over 2 decades. When he died in December 2011, Kim Jong-un was announced as his successor almost immediately. He was around 27 years old, barely known to the outside world, and had only been publicly introduced the year before when he was appointed as a general. The transition looks smooth from the outside, but behind the scenes, Kim Jong-un had to fight to establish himself, outmaneuvering senior generals, removing rivals, including members of his own extended family, until his grip on power was undeniable. That experience appears to have shaped how he thinks about succession, and his own health may be adding urgency to those calculations. According to NIS reports, Kim Jong-un's lifestyle is, to put it bluntly, not sustainable. Heavy drinking, excessive eating, chronic sleep deprivation, and chain smoking. He's 42 years old and reportedly already showing signs of cardiovascular problems, the same category of health issues that contributed to the deaths of both his father and grandfather. That's not a coincidence anyone in his inner circle can afford to ignore. Now, some analysts argue that Ju-ae's public appearances are less about succession and more about optics. North Korea has been under enormous strain. COVID lockdowns caused the country to seal itself off completely. Chinese trade, a lifeline for the regime, was severely disrupted. Inflation surged. Food prices spiked. In that context, Kim Jong-un appearing at public events with his young daughter beside him could simply be a calculated image, projecting warmth, relatability, and the image of a stable, family-oriented leader. There's also the issue of gender. North Korea is a deeply patriarchal society. No woman has ever held supreme power there. For most of the regime's history, the idea would have been unthinkable. But something has already shifted. Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong-un's sister, is the first woman to hold a genuinely central role within the regime. She serves as vice director of the Propaganda and Agitation Department and is arguably the country's most powerful voice in foreign affairs. She stands beside her brother in virtually every significant diplomatic encounter. Many observers consider her a potential successor in her own right. But there's a structural argument against it. North Korean succession tradition has always followed a direct bloodline from parent to child. Passing power to a sibling would be an unprecedented deviation. Passing it to a daughter, however, would not be. As Jae-woo Park put it, in North Korea's dynastic logic, blood outranks gender. And with this now being the fourth generation of the Kim family's rule, there may even be a political argument for doing something new, something that reinvigorates the dynasty's image, both domestically and on the world stage. There is one final, almost poetic complication worth noting. In North Korea, children inherit their father's surname. If Kim Ju-ae becomes supreme leader and has children of her own, those children would carry her husband's name, not Kim. The Kim dynasty, in the technical sense, would end with her. But Kim Jong-un has absolute power. He has changed rules before, and if he decides the rules of succession need updating, there is no one in North Korea positioned to stop him. We don't know exactly how old she is. We don't even have official confirmation of her name. What we do know is that a regime that has spent decades hiding its inner workings is now deliberately putting this girl in front of cameras at missile launches, military parades, and meetings with world leaders. In North Korea, nothing happens by accident in front of a camera. Whether she becomes supreme leader, a powerful figure behind the scenes like her aunt, or simply disappears from public view as suddenly as she appeared, Kim Joo-ae is already one of the most closely watched children on the planet, and the world is paying attention.